This is the Work at Home Heroes podcast. Your host, Kaitlyn Kuhl, digs deep with people from all over the world who make money from home. Get ready to wake up to a world of possibility for freedom, flexibility, and a life you'll love.
Well, hi there. I'm Kaitlyn Kuhl, and welcome to the very first episode of the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I made this podcast to showcase people who are currently earning either a full or part-time income working at home or from anywhere for that matter. I get hundreds of emails every week, every day, asking me, how do I earn money from home? So these stories on this podcast are to inspire, teach, and most of all, show you that it is possible to work at home and earn an income using your skills, grit, and determination. I wrote a manifesto specifically for our Work at Home Heroes community. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm just going to read it for you. I believe I am made for more. I deserve to succeed financially. My past doesn't dictate my future. If I can solve problems, I can make money. I write my own income story, and I am the hero. And this is the first episode of the Work at Home Heroes podcast. I would like to give you a gift of a downloadable manifesto. Simply go to the show notes at the end of this podcast, and you will get a copy to download. If you want to change it, feel free, take it, use it, recreate one for yourself. Whatever gets you fired up, just do it. I want to thank you for being here with me. Let's start this journey together and jump straight into our first episode. I'm here with Kaitlyn Kuhl. Am I pronouncing that right, Kaitlyn?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, how cool is it to have the last name of Kuhl? It's spelled with a K, you guys. It's Kuhl, and where she has a K in her name, I have a C, and where she has a Y, I have an I. So we are birds of a feather, two Kaitlyns on the same podcast on the same day. Thanks so much for joining us, Kaitlyn.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
So where are you in the world right now?
I'm currently in Bali, Indonesia.
Oh my gosh. And you guys, Kaitlyn is on with us at 11 p.m. at night. So I'm recording this at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday, and it's almost Wednesday where she is right now. So tell us about yourself, Kaitlyn. What do you do and how do you get started doing it?
I mainly teach English online to kids in China. So that is kind of my main line of work. But then I also own a record label in Chicago, which is where I'm from with my partner. And I'm also in the process of starting my own business, kind of an e-education platform as well. But I really just fell into what I do. I used to work in international marketing and advertising. I really didn't like it. I did a project in the Philippines doing country branding, and then I did one in Sri Lanka, and it just wasn't for me. So my partner and I moved to Cambodia, and I started teaching English, and then I got involved in online teaching English, and that's how I ended up where I am.
Wow. So did you go to school? Did you work any jobs in the corporate world before you got into working for yourself online?
Yeah, sure. So I have a bachelor's degree. I studied political science and international relations. My major focus was Sharia law and how it affects politics between the Middle East and the Western countries. So definitely not doing.
What is Sharia law, if you don't mind? I don't know that anyone knows what that is. I have not heard of it.
Sharia law is what Muslims follow. So it's based off of the readings of the Holy Quran. So there are a lot of government systems, especially in the Middle East, that have a lot of practices that are based off of Sharia law. So it's a religious set of guidelines to follow rather than we have the Constitution that we follow. It's just a different set of guidelines.
Got it. It's so interesting, man. There's so many different ways to work at home. And so this is really cool that we're getting into this, that you can work at home with that kind of background. And I think we kind of limit ourselves in our mindsets. We think, okay, well, if I can't answer phones for a travel company, or I can't teach English online, or, maybe I'm people have emailed me I'm deaf. Can I still proofread, for my Proofread Anywhere website? And I'm like, yes, you can. So we limit ourselves in so many ways. So I love learning about the different ways that people are working at home using their unique skills. And that is definitely a unique skill. So was there a moment when you were working, maybe while you were in college or something, where you're like, I'm not going to work for anybody else. I want to have my own thing?
I've kind of always been I never had a moment of I'm going to work for myself, but I've always been the leader in things and I've always really taken charge. And I've also been a workaholic. When I was in my senior year of college, I was also working in study abroad. So I was helping students find programs that they want to go on that fit with their major and how to go through the application process and find financial aid. And I was always the person that people would say that they needed someone to cover their shift. And I would be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going in, because I'm just very work driven. So I never had that moment of I'm going to work for myself, but I always knew I was going to be doing multiple things at once and just kind of follow wherever the path took me. And this is where it took me, I guess.
Got it. So how did you get started teaching English?
So when I moved to Cambodia, I hadn't been working for about 2 or 3 months. So I was kind of in a situation where I needed to find a job ASAP. And having a bachelor's degree definitely gives you a leg up when you're looking for jobs teaching English. I didn't have a teaching certificate, but I did have the bachelor's degree, which was really helpful. So I interviewed at some schools and I had some job offers, but I wasn't really interested in what they were offering me. The pay wasn't that great, and I just wasn't interested in all of the curriculum building per se. So I got involved with a company just doing private one-on-one lessons, which was really great because a lot of people just wanted conversational work, which is easy to do, and I love to talk. So it was really great to start off that way. And then once I gained some experience of doing actual lesson building with one-on-one clients, is then I started getting involved in online teaching.
That's awesome. So what kind of income are you generating from all this work at home that you're doing?
So it really depends. My English teaching, I get paid by the class. For example, in the summer, I can make as much as $7,000 or $8,000 in 1 month.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's definitely a good income. However, I do travel a lot and I'd like to do other things as well. So sometimes I will take time off. So I could make, only $3,000 a month, but I usually never make more than that because I really don't like taking time off. I love teaching. I love my students. I've been teaching some students now for 1.5 years. So yeah, I just work as much as I can and I do my other obligations when I'm not teaching.
Well, I think you bring up an important point for people who are working at home. We think, we want to make as much money as we can. And it's like money, money, money. Mm-hmm. But it's really not about the money. It's what we can do with the money. And so if we're making $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month, that seems like a dream. But if we're having to bust our heinies to get to that point and not able to use that money as the tool that it is to create freedom and joy and fun in our lives, which sounds like you are doing, it's about so much more than money. It's about the freedom. And I think that you are definitely embodying that, especially living in a place like Bali, not to mention in a place like Bali, $2,000 to $3,000 a month, which you said is kind of, you're on the lower end, is a king's ransom over there, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say it's better in other parts of Asia, but in Bali, it's still pretty good to have that kind of income every month.
Yeah, I've seen the places that you can rent on Airbnb because I've thought about going and visiting Bali myself, and you can get like this amazing villa with an infinity pool and all kinds of stuff for like a ridiculously low, like less than I spend on a 2-bedroom apartment right now. That's for sure. And it comes with like cleaning and furniture and all your amenities. And it's like an amazing place. So that's something that a lot of people don't think about. And I lived in South America for 1 year. And in Ecuador, I spent $550 for a 750 square foot condo, fully furnished with weekly cleaning, all of my amenities included, including like Apple TV, Wi-Fi, like fiber optic Wi-Fi, like really nice Wi-Fi. And like the best part of town is $550 US dollars a month. And so that's why a lot of, expats go to Ecuador, is because they're on the US dollar. It's their national currency, and it just goes so much farther. So even if, on a lower end of the spectrum, you're earning like $2,000 a month, that will absolutely cover you. You can go out and get like this amazing plate of food for lunch for like $2.50. It's so good. So tell me, when you're first getting started, were you confident about it? Or did you have your challenges? Were there any obstacles that maybe got in the way mentally or emotionally for you?
The first company that I worked for, I'm the type of person where like, I will get super nervous about things for absolutely no reason. I have a lot of anxiety that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. So when I was first starting out, I wouldn't say that I was like having difficulties or challenges, but just the interview process, because you're doing it like through your computer. So you miss that whole type of body language that you get in an interview. So it was nerve-wracking for me to go through an interview process of like, They find out who I am, decide if they're going to hire me, all without meeting me. But after going through it the first time with the first company that I worked with, I became a lot more comfortable with it. And then I didn't start working full time right away. I really eased into it. So, maybe I only taught 10 or 15 hours worth of classes a week and just became more comfortable with the online platform, and then started gradually working more and more. And then I realized, okay, I have enough experience now where I can move on to a better company. So I think just getting comfortable with the online platform was the biggest thing for me, but I don't think it took very long to overcome that. It was just like, this is how it is, and take a deep breath and let's go type of thing.
I like it. It sounds like you did it scared. And I think that's a huge mistake that a lot of people make, is that if something scares them, that they use that as an excuse to not do it. Whereas if you change that mindset from, hey, this fear isn't real. This fear is something that I'm deciding to believe, and the outcome, like the worst possible scenario, I always recommend, think about the worst possible scenario. What would happen? Like maybe you didn't get the job, how would you deal with that? It's not a failure thing. It's just a continuing to move thing, and using all of these experiences that scare us as building blocks, as stepping stones towards what we want to do. And it's just as valuable, I find, to figure out what you don't want to do, and who you don't want to hang out with, or whatever you're pursuing in your life, like what skill you don't want to offer to your clients, and what kind of clients you don't want to work with. All those bad scenarios, those are all very valuable experiences. They're just as valuable as figuring out the things that you do want to do. So if there's somebody out there listening right now who's thinking, hey, I don't want to get started until I know what I'm passionate about, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And you've got to just get out there. Yeah, you just got to get out there and start doing stuff, right?
I did a lot of things before. I didn't even know if I was going to like teaching. I basically just did teaching English out of necessity, and I happened to love it. But I did so many things before teaching English that I hated, even though it might have looked really good on my resume, or it might have gotten me really good contacts. I still hated it.
Yeah, I can relate. I can't say that I hated proofreading at all. I mean, I wouldn't have started a blog about it if I hated it. I loved the freedom more, though. I loved the ability that I could just sit on my couch in my pajamas, or even on my bed, and use my iPad and get work done. And then I could download the work and take it on a plane, put in some earphones to drown out any background noise so I could be super focused. And I loved the freedom that I had to generate income like that. But I can't say that, proofreading transcripts, it got super boring sometimes. I can't say that that was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And we were talking about mindset earlier. I had the mindset that was the only thing that was possible for me. I was like, well, I guess I'll just be a proofreader until I'm 80, because I really thought, hey, I didn't go to school for anything crazy. I would have to go back to school for another degree if I wanted to branch out. I had no idea that this whole online world existed. I mean, you're teaching English online. There's so much other stuff out there that you can learn online for a fraction of the cost and the fraction of the time that it costs to go back to school. And I think a lot of people just haven't even been awakened to that, because it's not like there's advertisements necessarily on TV. It's like, hey, go get on the internet and you can learn stuff, like nobody gives us that information. We just kind of have to stumble across it ourselves. And so that's why, podcasts like this one and hundreds of other business podcasts. I mean, actually it was a podcast that got my husband thinking about, venturing into entrepreneurship. It's been over 3 years since I've really been in the world of entrepreneurship. And it was through a podcast about entrepreneurship that he was awakened to that. And I, ironically, don't listen to a lot of podcasts, even though I have one. I just do one because people ask me for it. And that's, kind of what you learn.
Honestly, though,
start your business.
It's so true, because my end goal in my life is to get my PhD and to be a professor. So I love being in school and learning things. But I was just at a point in my life where when I graduated, okay, then getting my master's and getting my PhD, it's like, who has their PhD at 27, 28? Nobody. It's not realistic. And when I started teaching English online, I worked really hard at the company that I'm with now. And they actually paid for me to get my TESOL certificate. And I did the whole thing online through Arizona State University. And it was great. I never knew that I could do something like that online. And I'm currently applying to get my MBA also fully online. And there's just so many opportunities so that you don't have to go back to school, but you can still keep up learning no matter where you are in the world. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You really just need an internet connection. I know a common objection I get to, hey, can I make this work for me? They use the excuse of, well, I live in a rural town. There's only about 1,700 people or even 17,000 people that live in my town, right? And I just totally made that number up. But the excuse is the same every time. They're like, well, nobody's hiring for work at home jobs around here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all you need is a computer. It does not matter where you live. It's like that Backstreet Boys song. I don't care who you are, where you're from. As long as you got skills, right?
So
you
true.
have skills and marketing is a skill too. I mean, they're like, the skill that they're lacking is they don't know how to find the work. And that is exactly what you should learn how to do. And you can learn how to do it. We just kind of have this fixed mindset a lot of times. We just think, oh, well, I know what I know and I do what I do and I live where I live. And that's it. We don't realize that we're changing and that we can change and that our brains are like sponges and can absorb so much information. They're just these beautiful information and implementation machines, and we underuse them. It's the biggest tragedy I see is that we don't think we can change and that we don't think we can transform our lives with learning and with skills, but change is the only constant. And so if there's anything you get out of this podcast listening today, you guys, if you're listening, tuning in right now, so that change is the only constant, and we have to be comfortable with that. And have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and doing the things that we know we need to do. If it scares you, you should do it. You should definitely just go out there and do it. And it's through those experiences that we can grow. So what about your friends and family? So are your friends and family local? And during your building your career, did you have to deal with any maybe unsolicited feedback that they were skeptical or scared for you, or they're trying to control you in some way because maybe what you were doing scared them?
So it's interesting because my family, we never traveled when we were kids. Like everyone that I grew up with always traveled any break that we had or any summer. And my family was kind of the only one where we didn't really do anything. And I've just been driven my whole life to travel. I remember when I was a kid, I would make these entire plans of like going to Los Angeles or like going to Orlando. And I would plan everything. I'd be like, Dad, like this is great. Just book it. And so I've always had this passion to travel and get out there and see everything. And right when I started college, my first summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I moved to Morocco for the summer and I started learning Arabic. And it was the first time I'd ever left the United States. And my parents were just kind of like, what are you doing? This is not normal. Like we don't understand. And it honestly took my parents probably about 3 or 4 years of me traveling on and off throughout college to kind of understand what I wanted to do with my life and that this was going to be a thing that wasn't going to go away. So at first there was definitely just even the traveling part was a bit of pushback, but they kind of just jumped on board with it. And then right after university, I was living back in Chicago with all my friends and my family close by. And I was there for all of 4 months before I got a job offer in Belgium. And I just packed up and left. And I don't think anyone was really surprised. I think everyone was really happy for me and supportive. There was never really any pushback per se of like, oh, you shouldn't go or you shouldn't embark on whatever this journey is that you're going on. Everyone was pretty supportive, just kind of sad to see me leave. And as I transitioned from working just abroad to transitioning to working from home and traveling, there really hasn't been any pushback just because people see how successful I've been and how happy I am. So I've really never experienced the negative side of like, oh, it's kind of weird what you're doing. People think it's still weird, but people are supportive of it because I'm happy and successful.
Yeah, I think that is key. I know that when I and my husband and I first started our business, that the major skepticism that people had was they just didn't know what we were doing. They didn't understand it. And so it scared them. It was something completely different than what anybody in our family or the network of friends we had done. And so they just were like, yeah, okay, that's a pipe dream. Are you guys getting involved with a scam? When we started being successful, some people just kind of cut us out of their lives. It was really kind of awkward. Yeah, I didn't have nearly as positive an experience, especially with friends. Like I've just seen, friends just drop off the face of the map. People that ignored me in high school, on the other hand, are now trying to pick my brain and become my best friend. And, I had like the prom queen message me and she's like, hey, can you help me out? Somebody who ignored me. I never talked to her in high school. And now she's like, hey, remember me? And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is interesting. But nerdiness is always where the money is. And so I just encourage anybody to geek out on the stuff that just makes your heart sing. And if you always follow that, then I just don't think you'll ever be in want for money ever. So Well, my next question is about your morning routine. And I just am curious. I'm always curious about like what your routine looks like for people who work at home because it's just always different. So what does yours look like?
Sure. So it really depends on what my teaching schedule is like for the day. So for me, I'm able to choose how much I want to or not want to work. But typically, I have my day completely open for teaching, and it can really change up until 24 hours beforehand. But a normal day, Monday through Thursday, will look like teaching during the lunch hour and then teaching late afternoon into late evening. I always teach until 10 p.m. So if I'm not teaching until the lunch hour, typically what I do is I wake up 8, 9 o'clock and I'll either work out or I'll go for a walk with my friend at the beach or just do something active. I love doing active things and being outside and enjoying the weather. So just try to do something and then have breakfast and, maybe do something around the house or do some other tasks that I need to work on. Usually I'm taking a course online, so maybe I will do some online coursework if I have nothing else to do, but it's really just relaxed, nothing too special going on. And then I'll teach through the lunch hour. So usually for about 1 or 2 hours I'll teach. And then in the afternoon, same thing, pretty laid back, doing other things that I need to get done, whatever's on my list to do. And then just, teach through the evening. So the mornings are pretty relaxed for me. But then on the weekends or during high season, when the kids are out of school, I will start teaching at 9 a.m. So I usually just wake up, shower, and get right into teaching.
Wow. So you have to kind of stay pretty motivated to have that kind of schedule. But I think that I can tell just from talking to you that you love what you do. And so when you love what you do and you get good at it, that's where the confidence comes and that's where the motivation comes. I think a lot of people make the mistake of, well, I got to be motivated to do this. But no, the motivation comes after you take action, not before.
Definitely.
And just seeing the fruits of our labor and seeing, the kids learning and stuff like that probably continues to motivate you to get out of bed, even on days where you maybe don't feel like it. And so that's the question I have for you then is, are there days where you just don't feel like
Absolutely. I mean, I really struggle with anxiety. And so I definitely have days where it's just mentally, I do not want to get out of bed and do anything. I'm just completely shut out to the world. But I know that I have an obligation to these kids to show up and teach them for class. So, I mean, some days it's definitely hard, especially in the summer. I worked 13 hours a day, just about every day for 2 months. So it was really taxing. But at the end of the day, I love it. And even if I'm not in the best mood, I love seeing the progress that they're making. And I love being able to help them and discover things and just have their own personal successes within the classroom that they might not be able to have anywhere else. Especially in China, things are so competitive and these kids go through such a vigorous schedule that in America, we never did those things as kids. Our schedules weren't like that. So just being able to see their progress and see them smile and be happy it just makes everything better.
That's amazing. I think it's very important to have a driving factor that's outside of you. And I like to talk a lot about mistakes because I see them all the time. People are always making them because I work with a lot of beginners. And so a mistake I see is, and at some point, people are going to think that I'm a broken record, but I don't care. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I don't like it. And it never works when you make it about you, when you make it about making money. If you make this work at home thing all about how quickly you can make money, how you can solve your own financial problems, blah, blah, blah. If you focus on the outside, like for you, it's the kids. For me, it's people who make mistakes about working at home. Like I'm driven by people taking advice and taking courses and learning skills and changing their lives. I'm driven by those results. And so when I make that my focus, my own financial problems disappear. And I don't want to say I don't have any financial problems. Financial problems are, everybody just has money problems. Bill Gates has money problems. Your money problems just change. Like we all have money problems, but they just change their face. And some would say mo money, mo problems, but I say mo skills, mo money. So learn skills, help more people solve their problems, and you'll never be in want financially again. Your own problems will naturally solve themselves the more you focus on solving problems for other people and find joy in that. And I think that's really where joy and happiness come from, is from solving problems. So let me ask you, what advice would you give someone who wants to work at home right now and wants to really do that, but is just so scared, just paralyzed, scared to get started?
I think the biggest thing is to ease into it. Like if I were doing it again, I wouldn't drop everything that I currently have and just start it right away, because it can be scary if you've never done it before and you are already worried about it. So just take it step by step.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of work from home jobs are part-time, or you can, you know, you can do them on the weekends when you're not doing your other job. So that's the idea of working from home. It's super flexible. So it's easier to ease into it. You know, find something where you only have to give, you know, maybe 10 or 20 hours a week and give it a try. See how you like it. Work it into your schedule, because when you already have a set schedule, working from home is so much easier, and you're so much more motivated to do it because you can actually schedule it in to your already set schedule, which is what I've done. I have a set schedule for teaching, and then I work in everything else of what I need to do.
I think that is brilliant advice, Kaitlyn. I think that I always relate back to mistakes people make, but it's a mindset thing in this case where you think, okay, well, I'm listening to Kaitlyn and she works, or whether it's me, Kaitlyn, or you, Kaitlyn, I'm listening to a Kaitlyn, and this Kaitlyn is, you know, she's a workaholic. She loves what she does. She's working full time at home. Like, I can't do that right now. I can't. So I guess, you know, can't get started. Like, I guess that's it for me, you know, and that's just not the way it works. Like, I started very part-time as well. When I was first doing proofreading, I had 1 or 2 clients, and it's really about going a mile deep versus a mile wide. You don't have to go out there and get, you know, 40 hours worth of work or 40 clients immediately. That could actually hurt you more than help you, because you try to sprinkle your influence I use the analogy of the big boulder and the tiny leaf all the time. So there's like this big glassy lake. Imagine it in your head, close your eyes, whatever you need to do. You have this big glassy lake with, it looks like a mirror. And if you drop like a bunch of leaves all over the top of the lake, yeah, there's a ton of leaves in the lake, but nothing's really happening, right? Whereas you take a giant boulder and dump it in the middle of the lake, you go mile deep into that lake, and you create a ripple effect to spread across the entire lake naturally. So picture that. And that's what you do when you pick one skill. You start with one client, you start small, and then you go deep and you naturally go wide. But if you try to go wide, you'll never go deep. So that's definitely really, really key to start small. Don't think that you have to wake up tomorrow with $1 million business. I mean, my business grew literally from getting fired in 2011, making $400 a month as a freelance proofreader, spent $7,000 as a personal trainer. And 7 years later, that was in 2011. So we're nearing 2018 at the time of this recording. And my business has grown into the multi-millions annually, and it just blows my mind. But I wouldn't have been able to start with what I have now if I woke up one morning and like, okay, now I'm going to have a multi-million-dollar media company. It just doesn't work that way. You have to start small, and you have to be willing to go a mile deep, and the money is in the niche. So thank you so much, Kaitlyn. If somebody wants to reach you, just ask you a few questions about what you do, maybe how you got started, in addition to what you share with us so graciously on this podcast, how can they reach you?
They can email me, Kaitlyn Kuhl. So that's KaitlynKuhl@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time so much. And I wanted to point out just briefly, we're almost out of time, but you do not have a website. And so if anybody out there right now is thinking, hey, I can't work at home because I don't have a website, that is bull hockey. Get yourself out there, meet people, figure out whom you want to serve, and just get started. Start small, start with a few hours a week, and grow from there. Thank you so much, Kaitlyn.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for listening, guys. I'd like to invite you to be a part of our Facebook community if you're not a member already. That group is called Work at Home Heroes. We'll open up a discussion about this episode right in that group, and we'll be tagging Kaitlyn in the post so you can ask her any questions you might have. There's going to be a link in the show notes to find the group, so I hope to see you in there. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Work at Home Heroes podcast with Kaitlyn Pyle. Be sure to listen to previous episodes at kaitlynpyle.co/podcast. While you're there, read the show notes and check out all the great links and resources mentioned in this episode and more. You can also subscribe to the Work at Home Heroes podcast so you'll automatically be notified when our next episode is available. Remember, as Kaitlyn says, mo skills means mo money.